Do we have any more questions from our volunteer?
Yes. Does vision give form to light? And if so, how?
It's interesting because those people think that they just answered that question. They said, no, light is regardless of eyes to see it or no eyes to see it. Light is, it is the natural state of affairs. It does not, nothing is needed in order to give form to light. Light is. Does that help?
Yes.
Somebody's really getting hung up on that. They're saying, there's even an old joke about this, and sayings about this. When a tree falls in the forest, does it make a noise? Yes, it does. Trees that fall in the forest make noise, regardless of whether or not there are ears to hear it. The vibrations of sound occur. Whether or not there is anybody to observe light, light exists. And we see this actually. They're talking about how it is where there can be teachers that speak the total truth. They are shining the light in it, and these teachers are often labeled ahead of their time.
That's true.
Tesla was a good example. There are many other good examples throughout history of teachers whose light was shining when there were not eyes to see it. For example, we all use Edison's system, and now that solar is upon us, Edison looks like a fool, and Tesla looks like a genius. Tesla was right. Edison was wrong. But Edison wasn't above lying, cheating, stealing, and bullying, and therefore we have all used Edison's system, all of us.
That's true.
Light does not need somebody to be able to see it. What's true is still true. Why do you ask? That question goes way up.
Way up.
Let's get the next questions on the table quick while the portal's still open.
Do we always have to be perceived to exist?
I see that conference room table, and they're looking at each other with that same kind of confused and befuddled look.
Yes.
Like, how can we be having this kind of question? And they're saying, all right, let's start to detangle what's actually going on with this question. For example, they're holding it up, there seems to be some kind of idea that that there could ever be a moment when we are not being perceived. And somebody else is saying, when our focus is unidimensional, that makes perfect sense. We can go into the bathroom and shut the door and believe ourselves to not be observed.
That's true.
And then somebody else says, yes, but can they not look up and see there is in effect no ceiling, and that those from above are always watching them? And somebody says, but sometimes they don't want to look up because those people upstairs have been telling them what they need to do, and they don't want to hear it because it's scary. They're discussing it, but they are coming to the point that there is never a moment when we are not being observed. We are always observed.
That's true.
From above, all of us, all the time. And now the gentleman who seems to be in charge of that gathering is saying, but there is a second point here, and possibly this is equally important to the first point, and that is that one exists regardless of one's being observed. Whether or not we are being observed, we exist. However, many people choose to stop existing when they believe that nobody sees them.
Light literally allows us to see each other. But are we still...
No, Leo is objecting. He's saying our hearts allow us to see each other. But go on.
Are we still there in the absence of this light energy?
Again, these people seem it seems to really be getting them in their hearts that there is confusion like this that exists in the world. And we remember that these presences are from a significantly less dense dimension.
That's true.
And they have forgotten what it is to live in a dense dimension. And many of these other guardian angel types are chiming in and saying, these are good questions. There's nothing wrong with these questions. And some of the dead people are thinking these are genius kind of questions.
That's true.
But to that community who is trying to work on the big problems, they are shocked that these kinds of questions are on the table, whereas everybody else says, hey, this is a valid question, this is a good question, may we please hear the answer. And what do I know? Somebody's asking, what do I know? And what they're pointing on is how oftentimes the heads of big entities are completely out of touch with the rank and file.
That's true.
And I think that that's what this question is highlighting, or rather what the reaction to the question is highlighting. So may we have the question again, please?
Light literally allows us to see each other, but are we still there in the absence of this light energy?
Are we still there in places where light is not reaching? Somebody is broken-hearted crying.
That's true.
It might be Pan, and he's talking about the horrors that he's seen in his efforts to evacuate the dead children from the deeper, denser dimensions, from dimensions more dense than ground zero. For example, the cellular dimension, cellular to ground zero, or the atomic dimension, or the electron dimension, or the photon dimension. And to presences in those dimensions, they're experiencing life just like this. They don't know that they are a photon in this dimension any more than we understand that we're a photon in a much larger dimension. And he's just crying about how they're trying to live down there, and it's so horrifyingly a solid mass of selfishness and laziness and corruption and greed and lying, cheating, stealing, and bullying, and that nobody is thinking about anything but themselves, and their hearts are fully hard, and they're living in the completely short-term, immediate moment. What is the easiest possible way in order to resolve this immediate situation so it accrues to my personal benefit and that I look good? And he says he doesn't know if anybody is really trying to live in that environment, and by live he means in the largest sense. Are they trying to fulfill their destiny? Are they trying to complete their sacred vows to Spirit? Are they trying to live their soul plan? He doesn't know. And he says, and is anything else really living, or are we just waiting to die? You know what? I'd rather work with Pan than with anybody else.
That's true. What form, what frame is possible beyond perception?
I love that. All forms and all frames are always possible. There is never a time when forms and frames are impossible. I'm trying to figure out who's speaking. It's a really big voice.
That's true.
And those people in that conference room, it seems to be just coming in through the walls. It's like the walls are speaking to them. It's like they are becoming aware that they are cells in the body of a much larger being. It is this much larger being who is answering this.
That's true.
Saying all forms, all frames are possible in every single moment. But if we don't believe they're possible, it's not going to happen. We have to believe that it's possible. And somebody else is asking, what is a belief? A belief is something we know to be true. We believe in gravity. We know it to be true. Sometimes the label belief is applied to something that we hope might be true or we think maybe is true, but what we actually believe is what we know to be true.
That's true.
And that's why, oh, I see it, that's why this big presence is now trying to get new belief stimulated in his cellular selves and his atomic selves and his electron selves, because he's trying to change something about his life. And just as these host lives did in the summer of 2014, some 3 years ago, got the assignment, we've got to work with the deeper, denser dimensions or things will not change because the foundational beliefs of life are flawed. He seems to have gotten a similar assignment from wiser minds above him.
That's true.
So the answer comes down to we must work with our beliefs at deeper and deeper and deeper levels until we know that everything is possible, because it actually is possible. However, we're going to have to work in the foundations of life to make it happen, because at these levels there's definitely a belief in scarcity and limitation.
That's true.
And that engenders this pushy, selfish, lying, cheating, stealing, bullying, me focus that sounds like a mosquito after a while.
That's true.
Why do you ask?
Please describe the nature of the portal.
I see again a view from someone's eyes, and they're looking down, and this might be a dead person's view. They feel closer, and what it looks like is one of those shots of a hurricane from above.
That's true.
Where there's just clouds in a spinning fashion and then a hole. Somebody's joking, watch that first step. And that's what it looks like. This portal from above looks like an opening in the hurricane clouds.
That's true.
Why do you ask? And now looking up, we see somebody else, and we might ask, would it be okay? Would you be willing to share the view from your eyes? And this is one of those guardian angel guide types, just rank and file. And he's looking at a monitor. It's like one of those heart monitor machines in hospitals. Beep,
yes,
beep, beep,
true.
beep, beep, beep. There's a portal there, but he's not even looking at it. He's just looking at a readout. He's that much disconnected from reality. He doesn't want to reach over and touch the beating heart. He just wants to look at it on a machine, keep it at some distance, not feel the pain.
That's true.
Not an excellent sign. And now the question is going higher. It's going to the room of the Vanavinovs. And they see each other. That's really all they're seeing. They're talking about resources, and they're talking about allocations of resources, and they're trying to not get into an argument and not be unreasonable, but they definitely want the assets that they believe that they need to get their project done that they've been assigned. And really it's up to that person to get their assets that they think they need for their project, and there's still not a sense of oneness. And we look up higher, higher, higher to the source of these questions. Seems to be a Leo. Hi, Leo. And what he sees is, he says he sees God's tears. And then he looks up, and this big voice that seems to be in the walls and in the containers that hold all of us. And the big voice is looking at he's been given a diagnosis, some kind of bad diagnosis. It's bad news. He's got some bad illness, and somebody has said to him, like the metaphor I guess would be something like stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
That's true.
Which is basically notification, heads up, you're going to die. But if you stick around us Western medical people, we're going to torture you really good and squeeze the last drop of money out of your wallet before you die.
That's true.
He's gotten one of those bad news bulletins, and this is why he's considering delving into what's really going on. And that's as high as we can see right now. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there's Pan knocking. Going to work with Pan for a while now. Somebody's asking, what do we see? As we're ending the session, they're asking, what does the Ground Zero committed crew say? And that's how they're wording it. And the Ground Zero host life says, what do you mean by that? As best we can tell, there is no committed crew, but there are presences who are here right now.
That's true.
And what we see is it's the same everywhere.
That's true.
In all dimensions, everybody's the same. There's no difference. It's the same. And how important it is then to take that as an encouraging thought, and what our Ra would say is, and so how wonderful it is that we don't have to sit around waiting for some big benevolent and powerful person to solve the situation. We can do it equally well. We can do it. We can do it. It's up to each of us to change. Everything is poison and nobody else is coming to help. Now, what are each of us as individuals going to do to make it right? And how wonderful that is.